Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News website. We've got some news out of Endurance, and they recently I named them one of my home runs in the making. And I really don't think the market has appreciated that yet. I do think that's coming because every time they drill some more holes, they keep expanding on this orogenic system near surface. These things are well known to go very deep. And just even in the fine grained gold, they're already getting very high grades. And so I wanted to talk to Robert about those recent news releases. Robert, thank you very much for joining us today.
Allan, it's a pleasure to join you, and it's happy to talk about these results because we continue to be encouraged by what's happening on this project, and we provided the guidance based on those PXRF that we hope that these holes are going to carry gold values, and they do. With one of the holes of 30.5 meters of 3.9 grams roughly, and another one of 8.6 grams over 10.7 meters or so. So really good holes, and these still open the system up. These are all shallow penetrations just below surface. So we still don't have a good feeling for the dip and strike and everything like that of the zones, but these intersections are right in the melange. So this is where the zone it turns from a shallow dipping feature into a steeper dipping feature. They're all continuous. The mineralization is all continuous up there in the Eagle area, but we're now tracking it at the top. This top 400 of the 400 meters is about a 200 meter zone near the top where we seem to be getting these intersections in the melange near surface. And so those are the zones we now want to start tracking down at depth and prove that this zone really has a deep orogenic potential, which the strength of the mineralization, the consistency that we're getting, the high success rate of holes carrying gold suggests this is a very strong system, and will continue at depth. And now we just have to be able to prove that to our shareholders and investors that that's possible. And that's the program that we're conducting now with our diamond drilling.
Every time you guys put more results out, it just strikes me that this is becoming more and more an analog to Fosterville. And they mined in that near surface stuff for 20 years. Then they got deeper and found the Swan Zone, which was a company maker for Kirkland Lake. It made them into one of the best performing gold mining stocks, and led to them being bought out. And to have that kind of an asset in a junior mining company that's got less than a $50 million valuation is pretty exciting. The distribution of gold along strike, and even if you look from east to west, you're getting those hits across maybe about 150 meters depending on where you look at that. So it's quite tremendous continuity and high grades in that fine gold.
Well, I mean, there are some good comparisons to Fosterville. In fact, Michael Gray, an analyst who's got a very good reputation in BC, has been making that analysis recently in a report that he just put out during the PDAC. So. But there's differences too. Right? There's quite a bit of differences in grade and the geology that's setting. But what's common about it is that you're up in the higher levels of an orogenic gold system where you get an antimony signature, and you often get a sulfide replacement of the wall rocks. And in our case, there's a lot of brecciation that's involved, or the mineralized zones are hosted in fault breccias or cataclastites, and where the fragments as well as the matrix is mineralized, and that creates a continuity of grade from sample to sample through those shear zones when we hit them that are mineralized.
Just for our non-geologists out there, what Robert is describing there is brecciation is when your rocks get broken up. And what they're finding the gold in is not just the broken pieces of rock, but in the material between those broken pieces of rock. So, that is what causes a good conduit or a good place to then have these high-grade fluids carrying gold disperse the gold.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the things that can often be attributed to these epizonal or high-level gold systems is that there's two types of structural environments. When it's deep, the rock acts more plastically, but when it's up higher, the rock breaks and cracks into breccias, and so we're in one of those zones where the mineralization seems to be where it's cracking into these breccia systems, and the zones open up, creating these fault breccias that are mineralized. So that's whereas when you get these systems at depth, when the deformation is more plastic, you get what are called crack and seal veinlets. So you get higher grade, but much more narrower veinlets. And then, of course, when you're deeper in the system, they can often have a lot more visible gold associated with them versus what we have is a very fine gold system at the present time. But there's a very strong association with the sulfides in terms of where our gold is, which is typical of these orogenic gold systems. Often arsenopyrite and gold go together.
And are you able to pick that up with geophysics, Robert, or is it you're basically poking holes to follow it?
Well, geophysics is a valuable tool, but it's just a tool we're using. It's not. It doesn't create the bullseyes that tell you where the mineralization is necessarily, but it helps. It helps because the nature of our mineralizing system, we have rocks that once upon a time used to be magnetic, but where they're really intensely altered, the magnetite gets destroyed and turned into iron carbonate, and so. Those are zones that you can see as magnetic lows in the mafic volcanic. So if you had a cover area and you go to test a magnetic low because you know it's mafic volcanic down there, but it's a mag low might be because of this alteration, and where you have this alteration, you can often get the gold in our system.
So that begs the question, following this thing to depth, you guys have sort of a lens there of 400 meters by maybe 150 meters wide where the gold mineralization is coming up. Are you getting close to the point where you're going to try to follow that to depth?
Yeah, when we talk in our press release about the 020 zone, we've got a continuous zone of mineralization, both in the shallow dipping feature, but also this 020. What we interpret as the 020 is where that shallow dipping feature rotates and becomes much steeper dipping, and that whole steeper dipping feature is mineralized. And so so we're just transitioning into that now. We've got the first level of it with the holes. Of the 200 meters, there's about 165 to 200 meters of that 400-meter trend where we're getting intersections in what we interpret as the steeper feature. But we've only got one or two penetrations, so we don't have a good feel for the dip of it, but we know it outcrops on surface. And we know that the melange or the structure that this is hosted in is steeply dipping. So now we have to start testing with the diamond drill, and we've just started doing that. We've got 5 holes completed now, and our goal is to start testing this feeder structure or 020 feature with additional drilling to demonstrate that this has got this is now the zone is now rotated into a steeper dipping feeder structure.
Very exciting stuff.
Yeah, and so we've got at least 200 meters of strike that's still open, where there's that opportunity for this feeder structure to be mineralized.
And I take that comment you made about Mike Gray with a lot of. I pay attention to Mike because I've known Mike for many years. We, in fact, kind of came up through the same geological consulting company, and so I know that Mike looks at things in in a very realistic way, and he understands geology quite extensively. So I'm glad to hear that he's looking at the analogies to Fosterville.
Yeah, Mike's been a good analyst for many years now, and has built a good reputation, and so we're pleased to see Mike show an interest in our story and see the analogies here to Fosterville, which he recognized very early on.
Well, I spotted the same thing, and by the way, where's Mike working these days? If investors find his reports,
he's with an institutional brokerage firm called Agentis, Agentis, and
okay. I imagine any clients of that can find his recent reports there.
Yeah, we obviously can't post these kind of reports on our website, but we're happy to mention to people that he is covering us. At this present time, he has no target price on the company. So,
well, I think it's
a geological focused evaluation in terms of where we are.
Yeah, well, I think if folks want to reach out to Mike at our Agentis there, they can probably get their hands on that report, because I imagine he wants people to read it.
I can't speak for Mike, but
well, getting back to my earlier point, I'm looking around all over the world for these kind of projects, Robert, and it's quite impressive that you have road access. You're only 4 hours from Vancouver. You're in an area where there's been a lot of mining in the past. You're not reinventing the wheel here geologically.
Yeah, and it is a good area. It's an industrial area. There's logging activity going on right on our property right now, and there's been a history of logging and mining in this camp. So it is kind of an industrial camp, and and we've done our best to reach out and make the community a part of our process as well. So,
are you able to hire some of the local folks there, Robert?
Yeah, we have a good relationship with a contracting group out of Shalath, a company called Shala Development Corporation, and for 2021 and 2020, we averaged about 25% of our manpower component was through really well-trained and really excellent employees that we got in to come in and handle every phase of our program from early stage right through to drilling and support.
So have you released all your RC holes yet, or do you still have some of those pending as well as your core holes now?
No, we're pretty much fully disclosed now on our RC drilling, so there were in this last release, we put out the last of our, and there was a number of holes in there that we mentioned in one of the paragraphs that we didn't have gold values in, and they looked like they were located in the footwall of the Eagle Zone. So that's part of the reason they weren't mineralized. Largely was the reason.
Well, pretty much everything else is mineralized.
Once we figured out where we were in the envelope of that system, we tagged into the Eagle Zone pretty consistently mineralized over that 400-meter trend.
Wow, it's really shaping up to be a tremendously impressive project, and I think gold is heading towards a more bullish market. And I think when that happens, a company like yours is the kind that a lot of investors are going to take a liking to.
Yeah, well, we sure hope so, and it's going to be a busy summer of news and activity for us, and we hope that we can continue to deliver good results for our shareholders as the year progresses.
Before I let you go, Robert, I wanted to give the audience a little understanding of why you use RC. It's cheaper. You can get good distribution across a shallow target. But now you're transitioning to the diamond drill, and the diamond drill, you can see the geology, and that helps you target this system more at depth.
Yeah, we found that the RC drill, especially at the bottom end of the hill, the Eagle zone is quite oxidized, sometimes down to 25 or 30 meters below surface. And the outcrops that we saw of the zone that we sampled were overlooked in the past because the zone isn't obvious in those outcrops because of the orange weathering from the iron carbonating area. The same orange weathering is actually in the mineralized zone. But you could dig it out with a shovel. So we said, well, if we can dig this out with a shovel, we're not going to be able to get core recovery through this. And that's why we started our phase of RC, which is a dry RC technique that can drill through that zone where it outcrops near surface and get full recovery through the intersection. And we've duplicated some of those areas with diamond drill holes. We got similar grades, but we got much poorer recovery in the diamond drilling. So we found that, look, we can get around and do one hole per day with this RC technique. It goes pretty quickly, but you don't get good geology. You get a lot of homogenized chip samples on 5-foot runs. So it doesn't help you with a geological interpretation, but it gives you a good professionally recovered full intersection through the zone where it's oxidized. So we continue to use that up the hill. It seems up the hill, it's a little less oxidized further up the hill. So it wasn't particularly necessary. And then we were also finding the RC, we lost a couple of holes because as soon as you hit water with a dry RC technique, you have to stop drilling because the integrity of your sample gets ruined. And so so those are areas that we backed off on the testing those at the RC, and now we're testing that with the diamond drilling with shallow holes. So the average of our diamond, of our RC holes, I think the average is somewhere in the 70-meter range, whereas at the diamond drilling, we're already averaging holes that are probably in the 200-meter range. So we're already moving into the next tier, looking deeper with these diamond drill holes.
Well, in that first 70 meters, you've got awfully nice gold distribution, including lots of high grade. And, that bodes well for as you get down the next 130 meters and well beyond that. And that's the nature of these systems. They go super deep, and along the way, you can find these high grade, super high grade zones that make for tremendous mining opportunities.
Yeah, and just to correct your point there a little bit, Allan, they're 70-meter long holes, but they're typically minus 45 degrees.
Oh, angled. So you're really down only
our target zone would be in the middle of that hole somewhere. So that's why all of our intersections, if your intersection goes down, you hit it at 30 meters down hole at a minus 45 degree hole, it means it's only 15 meters below surface. So we're targeting these things. So these 70-meter holes mean that our target zones probably in that 20 to 40-meter range. And
well, that brings up an important point, Robert. It looks like you might be able to have a small pit there. Is that a possibility?
Well, we haven't looked into all of but all of the mineralization we've got 71 holes that average intersections of about 9.6 meters and arithmetically average about 5.17 grams per ton gold over that 400-meter trend. All of those intersections are less than 50 meters below surface. So there's a pretty good chance that that a lot of this zone has the potential to be mined by open pit, but then you have to go through the process of what makes sense from an engineering and mineability and community perspective.
But you wouldn't be looking at a huge footprint, and that would generate some, I mean, these days, that's like 10 times the grade of what makes open pits these days.
Anything we do here, if we ever put a pit in that area, we could reclaim it afterwards and replant it with trees and other things. So it shouldn't be any worse of a situation than the logging activity that's going on that clears off, that's clear cuts the side of a hill. It would take a lot less footprint than a clear cut would. and then we'd replant it anyways, just
Maybe
like,
you got a near surface situation, as well as the deep plumbing that could get things just blow the top off of everything.
yeah, well, we just haven't got into the engineering aspects of this, but the attitude of the zone is favorable for seeing the potential to mine a portion of this by open pit. But if it's an orogenic gold system, we recognize that really the big volume of the system is going to be in these steeper structures that quickly move outside of the realm of recovering through open pit mining.
Gotcha. Well, I'm tremendously excited about following this thing at depth. In fact, that's what I said in my recent report just out a couple of days ago at Rocks and Stocks News on YouTube, was that, you've got something at surface and now you get to start going deeper, and that's the nature of these kind of systems.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be involved in the exploration side, and now we have all the other challenges that come with success. So,
well, those are good challenges to have, Robert.
yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your update. I look forward to talking with you soon about your core drilling and what that's leading you to, because I think ultimately this is shaping up to be something like a Fosterville, and they're looking for those swan zones. So keep at it, and we look forward to future chats, Robert.
Okay, thanks very much, Allan. Take care.
Okay, I'm going to close things off. So there you go, folks. You always want to see what's happening with the truth machine, the drilling. And every time they drill more, it brings you closer to that analogy of the Fosterville, and they haven't even got down to where you would be hoping to find the swan zones. And as Robert said, in these near surface systems, you tend to get the finer grain material, finer grain gold. And as you get deeper, it gets more coarse. And that's where you find these super high grade, high margin type mineralization of high grade gold. So that's where they're heading. They're now looking at core drilling, and they can start to understand the depth potential better. So I'm looking forward to a lot of great news out of this company. And as I said earlier, I think that they have a very modest valuation for a target like they're looking at. So as always, investors, it's important for you to do your homework, speak with your financial advisors. Robert and I have done interviews on my website or on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News. That'll help you learn more about the project. Go to their website, look at their news releases, look at the cross sections and the longitudinal sections. It will help you to understand what they're doing. Look at their corporate presentations. I think if you do all that, you'll really start to wrap your head around why it's a good idea to own some endurance. On that note, have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.